next guest is brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2024 season, playing to rave reviews. Also some chicanery with a bear and a flag stick.
Not these two that you're watching. If you're on YouTube,
New Bears or New Bear.
We'll reveal that
big reveal coming up here.
Yeah.
Tee times for any time during the 2024 season can be booked online, or you follow them at Whistler Golf on social. And if you have a group of 12 or more, you, the organizer, plays for free. For more info to book online, visit whistlergolf.com. Joining us now is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast. Our pleasure to welcome John Shannon back to the program. How are you?
Happy wet Monday, boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indeed.
Did you catch the Canucks season-ending media availability last week?
Most of them, yeah. Most of them I did on Thursday, yeah.
Yeah. What did you make of Pettersson and the juxtaposition with Pettersson, Tocchet, and Allvin?
Well, I'd love to say lost in translation. I'm not sure I buy my own rationale. Yeah. You know, I mean, hey, when Rick Tocchet says, it's tendonitis, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's okay.
Move on.
Players put through it. That was the one that got me, was Rick just said, We all know Rick Tocchet has played through far more difficult injury situations than Elias Pettersson ever has. And that's not a knock at Pettersson. That's just a reality of the way Tocchet played the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Allvin's comments that, hey, we've got to get our players prepared to push through the harder games in the second half and the Stanley Cup playoffs. And John, like, for some, it's scandalous. It's, organization is suing Pettersson. And for others, it's simply, hey, these are the learning lessons that a young team and young players have to go through to figure out what it takes to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, and I just finished listening to the press conference in Winnipeg for Scott Arniel, and all he talked about is talking to the players and how the players are marveling at the intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs and players pushing through. And this is the learning curve, Matt. You're absolutely right. The value of these two rounds of playoffs for the Canucks is exponential. And that's what I think that this team now has to take advantage of. It is a terribly long, arduous journey to win the Stanley Cup. The Canucks got halfway there, but they learned a lot of lessons, and a lot of those young guys learned lessons. Hopefully, including Pettersson, and it will pay off. Maybe not next year, but it'll pay off in the next 2 or 3 years when the pain of losing will be transposed with the celebration of winning.
What do you think of one player revealing injuries and the others choosing not to? Is there anything odd in that? What do you think the ratio normally is on an NHL team of guys that want to talk about their injuries and guys that don't?
I find players much more secretive now overall than ever before. That's where I think that, and listen, Elias Pettersson has always been glib. Maybe he's always been rather honest about everything in his life. And when he sits down, whether it's an interview or whether it's in a scrum. And I also think that might be the part where some is lost in translation, where in Swedish, I think he would say one thing, and when he translated to English, it sounds much more abrupt. So I'm going to give him some leeway on this one when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I think it's also up to the individual. I think that if you want to say, hey, I'm hurt. I mean, here in Toronto, Austin Matthews wouldn't tell anybody that he had a hangnail. Mitch Marner never talked anything about his high ankle sprain. In fact, ripped the media for talking about the high ankle sprain, and it didn't put him in a very good stead with a lot of people. But from that perspective, I don't think anything after the fact that Pettersson said was a problem for me, and I quite frankly, I don't think it was a problem for the organization either.
Should they have rested him, though? Should they have rested him earlier in the season and make sure that he was ready for the playoffs?
I'm not in the medical room. I'm not in the dressing room. I'm not in the coach's room. If Rick Tocchet turns to the doctor and says, "Can he hurt himself anymore?"
Mhm.
And the doctor says no, and Tocchet says, "Well, we've got to be able to play at this level during the stretch run for the regular season, and we've got to be prepared for this in the playoffs, because both of you guys know everybody plays hurt in the playoffs. Everybody has a bruise, a bang, everybody's limping around." Then perhaps that was a lesson they were trying to teach Pettersson, fair or unfair, but that was something that they has to push through these scenarios if in fact he wasn't going to hurt himself anymore.
The other bit from the wrap-up year-end presser was Patrick Allvin, John, and his opening remarks basically saying, not satisfied. We didn't even get halfway there, and really setting an aspirational course for the franchise about being a contender and winning a Stanley Cup that we haven't really heard put in those specific terms from a Canucks executive for some time.
I love it. I mean, my goodness gracious, that there was almost refreshing to hear. That we hear so much, and we hear not just in Vancouver, but all through professional sports. We always hear the double speak when a team gets eliminated. Well, they were pretty good over there. We did our best, or lessons learned. For someone to say, no, our goal is to win the Stanley Cup and we're going to get there. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. I don't think Patrick's alone in this one. I think there's probably long discussions with Jimmy about exactly what to say and how to say it to a market that really, I think they really feel that there's a championship on the way at some point, and that's important. I don't think you settle for being second. You don't settle for being second. You want to win. You want your name on the cup. And for the Canucks management to say that, I think that's important.
Philip Hronek, John, what to do here with Philip Hronek? An RFA with arb rights, 1 year away from free agency, a marvelous first half, a poor second half, a uncomfortable final press availability here. And of course, the scarcest commodity out there, the right shot top pair defenseman. What do you think they'll do with Philip Hronek? And do you think the second half could have them moving on from the player?
I don't think so, but the body of work certainly was much more impressive before Christmas than after. At the same time, I think that what you have already mentioned, Matt, there are so many positive attributes about him. And to me, it's price point. What's the price point? If Alan Walsh thinks he can get him $8 or $9 million, then I suspect that it'll be 1 year and see what happens at the trade deadline if the Canucks aren't competing for a top position. But from that perspective, I think it's just too early to tell. I mean, I think that what does this team do at the draft? This group of managers in Allvin and Rutherford and Ryan Johnson and everybody involved, they're not afraid to make moves. So if there's something that can help the Canucks both on the ice and financially that includes moving Hronek, then maybe they have to consider it. But I just think it's too early, particularly with what's going on at the draft and what the Canucks do and don't have at the draft at this point, right?
In these scenarios, I think the agent probably tends to believe in the player and the ability to back up.
And if Allen, he believes in him better than anybody else.
But there's a lot of risk, because if he starts this season like he finished the season, my goodness, they start to lose a lot of their traction from 1 year previous.
Yeah. Listen, you guys watched the team much closer than I did. Did he have a bad second half? Well, he wasn't as good. He could play on my team any day. I'd have him on my team. And I don't, I like surly guys. Surly guys are good. Surly guys can play the game at a certain level, because I think, just like we talked about management saying they want to win the cup. I think that when you get surly guys, they understand the goal. I mean, I'm not sure that Quinn Hughes has the year he has without Phil Hronek. Period. And I think that's an important measure, and that's something I think the Canucks are considering and have to consider.
The truth is, he just stopped shooting the puck, like almost entirely.
Maybe he was told to. Maybe he was told to.
No, because he was hurt, and he didn't want to disclose the injury, but everybody saw him wrapping up the one arm before games or having to unwrap it to levels that they had not much seen with hockey players. So,
and listen, maybe that's, the injuries, that's the part of this world that we, on our side, don't understand what happens behind the curtain. And it's one thing to have opinions, but you have to be respectful of situations with injuries that are such a factor. And I know it's frustrating not to find out after the season's over who was hurt, how badly they were hurt, but that's now a modern day issue for everyone. And there's a scenario there where Hronek, whether it's rehab or surgery or whatever, how severe it is, and perhaps the team knows it better than we do.
Talkett was wondering this last week when he met with us. Does he have to go to the award show? No, good for him. He lives in Vegas, so it'd be a short commute if he does. But still haven't heard plans for what the NHL award show is going to look like. John, what are you hearing on that accord? Because of course we do anticipate that Quinn Hughes will be there and likely a Norris Trophy winner.
Yeah. It obviously scaled down from what we have seen in the past because I think there's a lot more attention being given to how the draft actually exists at the Sphere. So from that perspective, the award show is taking second fiddle to what's going to be the first sporting event within the venue. It's not at the Sphere. The awards aren't at the Sphere within, I think, 48 hours before. But from that perspective, it's funny. The award show is having executive produced the award show a couple times. It's a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. It's a pain because you can't please everybody. Entertainment's hard to find. Speeches are never good. It's difficult to do. But it generates in Canada 500,000 viewers just like that. 500,000 viewers in the middle of June. And so the league, I think, in many ways is twixt in between of how to invest money in the award show without receiving criticism and yet delivering a good audience to its TV partner. So I think they're scaling it down. They're going to have the 5 awards that are key. They're not going to have all the other awards. I assume they're going to have the award winners there, the ones that already have won. For instance, if Sasha Barkov will be there for winning the Selke Trophy. But it seems to be that it's not an afterthought, but it's just not getting the TLC that it once did.
I've been on this planet for a long time. I've watched it 0 times in my life.
Yeah. Again, it's for the hardcore hockey fan. It is for the hardcore hockey fan. There's no question about it. I like I'm old enough that I remember we did an award. The awards were given out at a luncheon between games 3 and 4 of the Islanders Flyers series in 1980. A luncheon. And then it grew into something bigger and has it did have some success. But again, I'm not sure how much success it has for the money that they want to invest in it.
A lot of your egg salad sandwich. Here's some cut carrots, potato chips.
When you call it a luncheon,
salad.
It's got to have.
Your Norris Trophy.
No, it was a high-end luncheon, boys. I think
high-end luncheon.
Prime rib.
Prime rib. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Electric knife and the whole thing. A lot of people.
You're showing your age there when you're talking about.
My dad still loves his electric knife. Oh my God, loves it. A lot of rumors connecting the Canucks to the Hurricanes, whether it's for Kakaniemi or Nechas or who are they going to be talking to? With the transfer of Don Waddell, it appears to the Columbus organization. is it going to be general manager Tulski full time? Do you think? Or
yeah,
you think so?
Everybody's pointing fingers that way. That at a certain point, the interim tag will be removed. The fascination with Carolina is it is a different animal completely. Always has been since Tom Dundon bought it. His role is in everything. He's very active in what the organization does, asks a lot of questions. And Don Waddell did a magnificent job starting on the business side first and then moving to the hockey side when they got rid of Ron Francis. And Don Waddell, I'm sure, managed Tom Dundon as effectively, as efficiently as anybody could have in that scenario, knowing full well that Tom Dundon is a hands-on guy. And obviously both felt it was time that things changed. And it does look like Don Waddell's pointed towards, the interior of the state of Ohio for his next job. So from that perspective, Eric Tulski has always been at the top of the list of people other than Waddell in the hockey ops group. And we'll just have to see. If they would remove the interim tag before or after the draft.
Lastly, for me, John, what did you make of Manny Malhotra's work with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and what do you think of him as the Canucks American Hockey League head coach hire?
You know what? I'm happy for Manny. I think that he obviously enjoyed his time as a player and in the organization in Vancouver. I think Vancouver's always had a special spot for Manny. I would tell you that he did a good job in Sheldon Keefe's system, but you were never allowed to talk to Manny Malhotra in Toronto. So it's difficult to measure who did what and how in the realm of what assistant coaches did for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But Manny coming home, I think, is a good thing. We all know the kind of player he was for the Canucks, and hopefully he can translate that for what goes on in Abbotsford.
Marvelous stuff, John. Thank you for this, my friend. And we know you ride with us all summer, so looking forward to next week already.
Cheers, boys.